This is WBSM On Demand.
Good morning. Good morning. Boy, it's a nice day out there. It's a little cold. I wouldn't want to be outside today, but I chose a good career. I'm in the radio business, so I don't have to be outside. And we are now joined by Meghan Lapp. Meghan Lapp, of course, started her career here in New Bedford in the fishing industry and is now in Rhode Island with Seafreeze, which is a very big company it's in the seafood business, right? They go out and catch lots of things. But Meghan Lapp also took the federal government to court, okay? She contested putting monitors on the boats, a lot in the case. We're going to have Meghan talk more about it. But you're going to hear the overruling of the Chevron decision. You hear Donald Trump and a lot of his appointees, particularly Elon Musk, they bring it up all the time. It's all because of my next guest, really. Her case overturned Chevron at the Supreme Court level. And it's opening up a lot of great opportunities for American industry and American citizens to practice the free enterprise system as God designed it. So we're now joined by Meghan Lapp, who's been here before, but just a really great American. Good morning, Meghan Lapp. How are you, my friend?
I am great, Chris. Thanks for having me on. So much.
Really, what you have done for this country by standing up to talk about how you got to the Supreme Court and all the other stuff that's involved with this decision. Talk about that, Meghan.
Sure. So a lot of folks in the New Bedford area are aware of the at-sea monitors that the government placed on ground fish boats. There had been a case against that. The judge had thrown it out for procedural issues. But then the federal government tried it again with the herring fishery. And I attended every New England Fishery Management Council advisory panel meeting, committee meeting, council meeting, talking about how that's just not financially sustainable for a fishing vessel. And basically what they were doing was this. The law says that fishing vessels have to take federal observers on the boat. And those observers are there to take biological samples, et cetera, for use in management and science. And we never had a problem with that. But what happened in this particular instance was the federal government said, well, we want you to have to take more of these entities, but we don't have the money to pay for them. Congress did not give us the funds to pay for this. And so they said, well, instead of calling them observers, we're going to call them at-sea monitors. And it's just an invented position. All they do actually is regulatory compliance. They don't even do any of the science. And they said, Congress didn't give us the money for it, so we're going to force you to take them and then also force you to pay their salaries out of your own pockets. And I was like, no, that's not what the law says. That is not the rule. And the federal government can't just say, well, Congress didn't give us appropriations to do what we want to do, so now we're going to go after individual citizens and individual companies to pay the salaries of federal employees. That's not how the Constitution is designed to work. So we engaged with an organization called New Civil Liberties Alliance, great group out of Washington, D.C., and basically they took our case pro bono against the federal government because they're an organization that is like a watchdog group, that tries to go after the government on government overreach issues. So we lost at the district court. We lost at the Court of Appeals because there was this legal doctrine in effect at the time called the Chevron deference. Mm-hmm. And what the Chevron deference says is if the statute that authorizes an agency to do something is silent on an issue or ambiguous on an issue, well, then the agency can just create powers for itself and the court has to defer to the agency. So the citizen loses every single time. And what I can't believe, as you mentioned, Elon talks a lot about this. Vivek Ramaswamy is talking a lot about this. The whole Department of Government Efficiency has been talking about this because what the Chevron deference did for 40 years in the United States was if the law said to an agency, Congress is authorizing the agency to do A and B, the agency could create powers C, D, and E for itself. And if a citizen sued them and said, well, the law only says you can do A and B, you can't do C, D, and E, the judge would have to say, oh, well, the statute is silent on it, so the agency wins. So for 40 years, the agencies have been creating entire departments, entire programs, entire, staff and everything else to fund powers that they made up for themselves. And so we took this to the Supreme Court in January. The court sided with us in a decision in June and said the Chevron deference is overturned. So now, like you said, Elon and these people that are looking at scaling back the administrative state, I guarantee you they're going to go after all these invented powers that agencies gave themselves and created, a massive government bureaucracy that really Congress never designed.
We're speaking with Meghan Lapp, and she's really an American hero. You just heard that story. Really, you started in New Bedford working in the fishing industry. You're still in the fishing industry now. And you overturned an amazing amount of law with Chevron. This is, it stuns me every time I think about it, really, and how much of the free enterprise system has been crippled through this government overreach. And that has ended since your decision. But, Meghan, why now are there still monitors on boats?
Well, so here's what happened. When we went to the Supreme Court said, we are not going to rule on the fisheries issue.
Okay.
We are only going to rule on the legal issue of Chevron. So they overturned Chevron. And now they said, okay, go back down to the district court and relitigate the fisheries issue, but without the Chevron deference. So now we go back to the district court, and the judge is going to actually have to do a ruling based on what he thinks the law says, not just an automatic deferral to the agency. So we have submitted briefs on that, and, I think we'll probably get a hearing date sometime in the new year.
We're speaking with Meghan Lapp. So, Meghan, explain how your case, the overturning of Chevron, may impact offshore wind because of how the agencies operate.
Well, I think, unfortunately, I think what the Chevron deference did in many ways is for judges who just didn't really want to decide a controversial issue, or for judges who just didn't want to read, they could just be like, Chevron. If they could somehow say, well, it's easier to say, well, the statute's ambiguous, or, the statute is silent on this, just defer to the agency and kind of get out of having to make the difficult decision. Now they don't have the ability to do that. And I think that, based on kind of a whole host of cases that were recently decided by the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court's direction is very much in the way of reducing government power rather than expanding it. And so I think that hopefully that theme kind of flows through, a lot of case decisions going forward.
The offshore wind industry is competing for fishing grounds, basically. What are your thoughts on that, Meghan?
I say it a lot, Chris. The offshore wind industry in this country, it's not even our country's industry. It's like the government of Denmark, the government of Norway, things like that. It is the single greatest threat to commercial fishing in the United States that exists. And if all of the projects that were previously, identified by the Obama administration, pushed forward by the Biden administration, if all those projects go forward, you will not have commercial fishing on the East Coast of the U.S. Because people ask me all the time, well, can they coexist? And the answer is no. They cannot coexist in the same time in the same place. And so it's one or the other. And fisheries are extremely regulated. Fishing is the seventh most regulated industry in the United States, more so than oil and gas extraction and much more so than offshore wind. And a lot of those regulations are spatial. You can't legally go someplace else. You can't legally use that gear in another area. And, also there's the ecological ramifications of it, which are huge. You're taking, a pristine ocean and turning it into an industrial power plant that's thousands of square miles. And that's a very big deal. And I'm really hoping that the Chevron case, as well as the change in administration, really puts a stop to offshore wind as well.
So for those people who say they can coexist, you with all these years of experience in the fishing industry say they cannot coexist.
You certainly cannot coexist with a net towed behind a vessel.
Right.
That net is not directly behind the boat. You got a quarter mile, half mile of wire behind you, and then the net. So
right.
if that net gets hung up on the underwater infrastructure of a project, there is a chance your boat could end up at the bottom of the ocean, and that's just not safe. No captain's going to put their crew or their own life in danger doing that. And the other thing is, offshore wind turbines create marine radar interference. It's a big problem. It has not been solved, no matter what the wind companies try to lie and say. They'll say, "Oh, well, we'll give them, we'll give fishermen new, improved radars." Well, the fact of the matter is there is no type of radar existing that is immune to offshore wind radar interference, period. And not even just marine radar. It's like all kinds of radar, defense radar, air surveillance radar. Sweden actually just killed 13 offshore wind projects off its coast because it was going to interfere with its ability not only to detect submarines but also to detect incoming missiles. The radar interference is going to reduce their missile detection time by half. And the Swedish Ministry of Defense said, we got Russia next door. They're a threat. We're not putting stuff in the way that makes us at a disadvantage if there was ever a Russian offensive. So, that's a big deal. It's not really talked about here. The wind companies have the narrative pretty well tightened up, but the facts are there are no solutions for radar interference right now, whether marine or otherwise. And so, a commercial fishing vessel, we're going out in all kinds of weather, in the fog, in the rain, in the snow, everything else. At night, you need your radar to work. If it doesn't work, you can't go through a wind farm. That's just common sense.
So this is, Meghan, I did not realize that. I didn't realize that those wind, the turbines impact the radar like that. I didn't realize that.
Yep. It creates false targets, and it can hide the real target. And what's crazy is I started to investigate this myself, Chris, as I began to find out that they caused marine radar interference, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's really, really, really bad. That's bad for our boats. And I began to dig into it and look at the studies and things like that. But then as you read that, you find out, well, actually, it's a problem for all radar. And you start reading more and more. Actually, the federal government did a study in 2020, I believe, and it was on air surveillance radar. We have air surveillance radars, we use to detect regular commercial air traffic, but also things like, 9/11 planes.
Sure.
And it showed that the air surveillance radar for JFK Airport in New York City, the entire line of sight of it is going to be impaired by a wind project that the federal government subsequently approved. And they said false targets can hide in there, and also, masking of real targets will occur. And again, there's no solution to this. And I'm like, JFK Airport is one of the busiest airports in the nation. And if anybody actually remembers 9/11, that's where planes were going, kind of. And this is a huge problem that nobody talks about. And it's very, very concerning. And there are never solutions. The government will say, well, we'll work on a solution later.
Right.
But we'll approve the project now. And it's I don't want to be in a plane when you approve, when you come up with a solution later.
Right.
I want the solution now.
So Meghan, this is a whole new can of worms. I'm going to look more into this. The impact on the radar on the marine. So it's a danger to our fishermen and all the boats too.
Yes. It's a huge danger. And you know what the other maritime danger is this. Coast Guard search and rescue will certainly be impaired. Boats don't go down in nice weather,
right?
In beautiful, sunny, calm weather, right? It always happens in bad weather, in the dark, in the night, in whatever. And, we already have one instance of Coast Guard search and rescue being negatively impacted by offshore wind farms. A few years back on New Year's Day, there was a boat that went down next to the Block Island wind farm off of Rhode Island. And that's only 5 turbines, okay? So keep that in mind.
Right.
The boat, it didn't go down because of the wind farm. It was taking on water, and they needed somebody to come rescue them. So the Coast Guard sent out a helicopter. But here was the problem. So it's bad weather, right? It's at night. It's, either snowing, raining, windy, the whole nine. And those turbines are 600 feet high. Well, the cloud ceiling was only 300 feet high, which meant that helicopter had to fly underneath the cloud ceiling, lower than 300 feet.
Right.
So they couldn't get close to the wind turbines because the wind turbines are now in the way. They can't fly above them to see anything. They got to be under the cloud ceiling if they're going to look for survivors. And so the official transcript of the Coast Guard's report on that search and rescue attempt was they had to abort the search and rescue mission and return the helicopter back to land because of inclement weather and hazards in the area, which they identified as the Block Island wind farm. So think about that, with all the projects that are scheduled for like south of New Bedford and south of Rhode Island. It's 1,400 square miles, over 1,400 square miles. It's like 3/4 of the size of the Grand Canyon National Park, to put that into perspective for people who are familiar with that. So think about a turbine a mile apart in every direction. Pretend there's a boat in there. The boat goes down. You think anybody's going to rescue them?
Oh,
no,
that is...
they can't get to them. So it's like, and the Coast Guard's got the same radar on their boats that we have on our boats.
Right.
It's not any different. And so their radar is going to be impacted. Their search and rescue capabilities will be impacted because of radar interference as well. And that's something I've asked the Coast Guard for many years to look at, to investigate. I've asked them in multiple public comment letters, at meetings, etc. And when the Coast Guard was actually doing the navigation study for Massachusetts and Rhode Island, it was called the MARIPARS study, the Massachusetts Rhode Island Port Access Route Study. I gave them all of these different references to studies that, talk about radar interference, even one that the Coast Guard itself had done for Cape Wind back in the day. And it was a modeling study. And I said, look, we need to have an adult conversation about this. I'm asking the Coast Guard to model radar interference, but with this many turbines and at this size, because there's a lot more than there were in Cape Wind, and they're a lot bigger. And so, we really need to look at that and then have a conversation about what stuff looks like. And the Coast Guard's official response in the final document was, we're not aware of any studies that confirm or deny radar interference as a result of wind turbines. And I was like, that's ridiculous, because the Coast Guard itself did a study in 2009, number one. And number two, I was like, all of these other studies talk about it from the UK, from other places. And so the Coast Guard just denied it. But then shortly thereafter, before that document was finalized, the guy who was in charge of it for the Coast Guard went to become the director of marine affairs for Ørsted, which is one of the developers holding a lease in the area that was under consideration in the study.
The revolving door.
Right. And the study was never redone or anything like that. And then later on, the National Academies of Sciences did a marine radar interference study, with regard to offshore wind. And they came out and they said, yeah, there's problems. There's no immediate solutions. We have some ideas of maybe in the future something maybe that could work, but there's no solutions right now. And all classes of radar are interfered by this. And it could be, a real problem. And they actually quoted my comment to the Coast Guard in that study. And so it was like, but again, still, Chris, even still with this, this is a big deal, right? You have all these projects at the entrance to New Bedford, right? And in very heavily fished areas, very heavily transited areas. And they're just moving forward with no solutions. And I'm like, that is the most irresponsible thing that you could possibly do. Until you have a solid, provable solution, you shouldn't be allowed to do anything. No way.
We're speaking of Meghan Lapp. Meghan, I really appreciate your time. She's with C Street. Who was the law firm, again, that took your case pro bono? I feel like they deserve a lot of credit here. Who was the law firm?
Absolutely. New Civil Liberties Alliance. They are a fantastic group of people. Look them up. They do all kinds of, lawsuits standing up for average American citizens that are abused by the government. And they're actually going to be taking our case again, when we go back to district court in the new year. So yeah, lot of gratitude to them, a lot of kudos.
Meghan, America, I think, owes you a debt of gratitude, really, for what you've been doing. You're like an unbelievable legal patriot and a great member of the New Bedford fishing community. So I really appreciate it. Meghan, I hope you and your family have a wonderful Christmas.
Thank you. You too.
All right, thanks. We're going to say goodbye to Meghan, and we'll take a quick break. I'm Chris McCarthy. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the program. I'm Chris McCarthy. We're going to thank Meghan Lapp again. She's just a great American. There's no way around it. Great sponsors make this program possible. Mac Auto Sales, 188 Rivet Street, New Bedford. They repair all makes and models. So if you need to get your car ready for the winter, folks, winter is here. It's really freezing out. So you got to get your car in there sooner rather than later. Only way to beat inflation is to keep your car up and running, right? So make an appointment with Mac Auto Sales. Give them a call, 508-565-6221. They're open weekdays, 9 to 5. They specialize in foreign cars, but they do a nice job with domestics as well. So bring your car in right now to Mac Auto Sales, or at least make an appointment. Ask about their aftermarket accessories and the quality used cars that they have for sale there. Tell them Chris McCarthy sent me. All right? We're going to now be joined by one of my coworkers here.
Oh, I thought.
Come on. Come up to the microphone. Kristen Pacheco.
Wow.
She was out downtown New Bedford shopping yesterday, and I said, that's a good story. She was at
Well, actually, I think
Carter's Clothing.
I was at downtown during the day, and then I went back again out at night.
Right. To Carter's.
I went, to Carter's. I went during the day.
How was that? How was your experience, Kristen?
Honestly, all right. So I think a lot of people right now, if you're trying to kind of squeeze in your Christmas shopping, you're like filling it in between kind of your comings and goings. So on my way to the station.
Because you're a mom, you're professional.
There's a lot going on. But I woke up in the morning and there was one thing that dawned on me, and I was like, that would be a great gift.
Right.
And then I thought, I know Kevin has it at the store. So
Kevin Carter.
Yep. So they have a parking lot. So I was like, that's not a problem. Parked in the lot, ran in the store, obviously looked like I didn't know where to go first.
Right.
And then one of the staff was like, I will help you. And I was like, great. This is what I'm looking for. And he goes, say no more. So he showed me like 3 different versions of it. And I was like, perfect.
What were you looking for?
I can't tell you. It's a gift.
Oh,
it's a gift,
that's
okay?
right.
But regardless.
You think your husband's listening?
I don't know. Regardless. So I grabbed it, brought it to the counter. Kevin's dad was working. A delight. In and out. One gift done. Down. Back on my way.
You'll go back to Carter's if you need more clothing. Since I don't want to say what it was, because I don't want to blow the Christmas.
It was clothing.
Yes, I know.
Because, yesterday.
I figured it wasn't a jigsaw.
No, yesterday at 5 a.m., I saw him leave the house for work, and I was like, what is he thinking? Like, it's frigid.
Right.
And then, but he won't wear coats. He's one of those people, he will not wear a coat.
A lot of guys are like that.
He has a coat. He will not wear the coat.
I assume your husband has a coat, but he doesn't want to wear it.
Doesn't want to wear it. There's something very specific he likes to wear, and I'm like, you've been wearing this for like 10 years. Like, we got to update it. So I did.
You zipped in, you zipped out.
That's it. That's it. Like, in and out. It's like, great.
Perfect shopping for a working woman.
But also, like, they were very helpful, honestly. Yes. And then there was another man there. He was looking for a similar item, but for all of his work crew. So we were browsing the rack together. But anyway.
Carter's Clothing and Footwear. They got two locations, downtown Fall River, on Plymouth Ave, or you can go to 55 William Street in downtown New Bedford. Both locations have free parking and great helpful services, as you just heard Kristen tell us. And they have holiday hours here. The holiday stroll in downtown will be the 14th.
Yes.
The 14th. Lots of shops are going to be open, not just Carter's, but Carter's, and they got holiday extended hours, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Fridays, Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 5:30, Sunday 11 to 4, always free parking. Again, folks, it's a store you can do business with. You can really have faith in them. The Carter's family, great family, right? You got to say yes, because nodding, no one can see you nodding, just me.
Yeah, I know. Today. I just told you I was out downtown last night, so bear with me.
You were in downtown last night. It's fun down there, right?
I went to the places. I had a good time, and I'm paying for it today. It's all good.
Thursday night in New Bedford, it's always a good time.
It was a good time.
Were you at the Rose Alley?
That's where I went. I went.
Did you get wild at Rose Alley?
I didn't get.
Did you get in a fight?
I took a friend out for her birthday. I think that was our first stop of 3. So we had a nice
Oh, is
time.
Abby back?
Not yet.
Okay.
She'll come back next week, so we'll go out again.
All right.
And I'm just gonna just like when you and I go out, when I
Right.
take one friend out at a time to
Right.
try all my favorite places.
Right.
So that's what we did.
Rose Alley.
Good time. It was a good time.
Did you get wild at Rose Alley?
I didn't get wild. I watched some people get wild, and then I wanted to avoid this other awkward situation. So they had like a sneaky door in the basement, and I said, I'm gonna slip out.
Out the back door.
I'm gonna quote unquote go to the bathroom because
Right.
that's in the basement, and then I was gone.
They got a nice cocktail lounge downstairs.
They do. It was great, but also like they had an exit, and no one, none the wiser, and it was great. Good times.
Watch out
I
for
like going
Kristen.
downtown.
So you didn't run out on the bill,
I didn't like grift anybody.
Oh,
No,
right.
no. My tab was paid.
right?
But then, like, we were chatting with these other people, and they were telling me this tall tale about how they're from New Jersey, and my friend was like, God, you're so dumb. They're not from New Jersey. So I was like, oh, we'll be right back. I'm just going to go to the bathroom, and then we
You slipped out.
skedaddled.
Out? You escaped. You did the Irish exit.
The Irish exit, yeah. But I didn't, paid my bill. That
Well,
was all
the
great.
Irish exit, you always pay your bill. You want to go back and get a drink next time. So you got to pay the bill.
That's right.
Which you did
Got to
that.
go back next week.
Right.
Yep. But
Right.
it was a good time. I like it down there.
Rose Alley, a lot of fun. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Thanks, Kristen. When we come back, folks, we're going to talk about New Bedford City Council and how they may be promoting Shane Burgo to be their leader. It's not a done deal yet, but I wanted you to understand Shane Burgo's a nice guy, a good guy to hang out with, I guess. Go out, get a meal, get a drink. But I don't think he should be the leader of the New Bedford City Council. His ideas are way out to lunch. I'm going to play some of those ideas when we come back. I'm Chris McCarthy. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the program. I'm Chris McCarthy. It's Friday. What do we do on Friday? We eat fish and chips, right? A couple ideas for fish and chips. Head up to the Profile Tavern in Freetown. Profile Tavern in Freetown. When you want fish and chips, head to the Profile Tavern. Profile Tavern, East Freetown, right off Route 140. If you're in New Bedford, head north for fish and chips, right? Anywhere else, east to west, you can take the highway, take the back roads, head to the Profile Tavern. They got great fish and chips on Fridays. Every day of the week, but they got all kinds of other fish out there too. But check it out, the Profile Tavern. All right, we got a guest here on the phone. Good morning. Thanks for calling in, Senator Montigny. How are you, my friend?
Well, I couldn't resist it. Initially, when I heard your discussion with Kristen, I was thinking of wonderful things like Carter's clothing. I was thinking of the children's gifting program you guys are running with Michael Rock over in Fund 107. And then she started with the ghosting at Rose Alley. And I had this horrible thought that I wonder if that ever happened to me when I was young.
Of course it did.
They didn't have a lot of escape entrances in the dives that I hung out in New Bedford back in my day.
You probably hung out at the original cultivator.
As far as I know, the Owl's Nest didn't have a back door.
The Owl's Nest.
Oh, my. Well, so I don't want to get too distracted here, but why not have some fun? We started going to the Owl's Nest when it was really the place for people to go after Berkshire Hathaway, and drafts were 25 cents, I think, at the time for a little small draft. I'm dating and aging myself, but not really, because it was just really cheap beer. And we turned it like our crew, the Dana Connors and the Bruce Folkarts of the world, and Eddie Craig. I shouldn't start naming because somebody will get back to them and say, I'm the one who started going there. But we turned it into like a really fun, youthful place, to the chagrin of the guys that we were friendly with that were coming across the street from Berkshire Hathaway, because as soon as they realized that we were there as, college students, a little after college, they want to raise the prices on drinks. I'm thinking, wait a minute, we have less money. We don't have paychecks.
Right.
But it was such a fun place for a while. First place I ever saw a Pac-Man machine. We used to play pitch. It was, but my memory from all of those hard nights, there was never a back door that anybody could ghost us on. I hope. Now I'm starting to think, did that happen? Yeah, I bet it did. That's a great story.
Girls have ways to escape. There are all kinds of ways. Girls have ways that men don't even understand. That's the women are smarter, as the Grateful Dead said. The women are smarter.
Well, I'm not making any comments that will get me in trouble. You seem to be able to get away with saying anything, although...
It's because I died, Senator, and came back. No one challenges me.
That's true. You get like some kind of dispensation from above. How's your Christmas season?
Oh, things are going great.
Mine starts like the day after New Year's, the year before. I mean, I'm a Christmas freak. So,
what sort of stuff are you doing this year for your constituents, Mark?
Well, so I know we don't have much time, and I know that I'll probably come in next week, but I just think it's great what you all are doing to try to raise awareness and funds to help people in need. And the only thing I wanted to say this morning is there's a lot around the holidays. It's very frustrating to those of us involved in trying to help those in need, particularly the nonprofit world that directly serves them. But I tend to be very plugged in, trying to be helpful where I can. Obviously, it's not just my job; it's my thing. Right. Most of the people that are plugged in have help. So whether it's Youth Opportunities Unlimited, the United Way, the Denison Memorial, there's just a lot of really good organizations, Child and Family, the churches. They know who people are that are struggling, and it could be that somebody is just struggling, right? A family that has little income and children that deserve to smile in the holiday season, or somebody who just recently lost their job. I mean, everyone deserves Santa Claus.
You're talking about these families who are not traditionally down in their luck, so they're not really plugged in, and the networks don't even know they exist because
right. And to me, the passion's got to be to help both sides, right? Because some people are plugged in and they just can't even, get the next meal. You've heard some of the stories from 107 at BSM in the last week. I listened to Tim. I've talked to Kristen and Michael. But I guess the only thing I want to say today, and I'll say it more next week because I think I'm going to be on with Michael and you. If people know of people out there, what I enjoy most with my children's fund is somebody who might fall between the cracks. Maybe they're too proud to contact an organization. Yep. Maybe they don't think of themselves as struggling. Right. But the reality is that they might be.
Yes.
So I hope that they will email you or Kristen or come into the station or see the United Way folks because that's what we want to do.
And you're going to help them out, Mark.
Well, I mean, look, there's lots of people helping out.
Yes, I get that.
And I just want to plug holes where people might be falling between the cracks.
I know, Mark, you're a very generous guy, and I appreciate it. And you reached out to me about a month ago now and said, "What are we doing?" And I love it about you.
Well, I have a 10-year-old son, and I had him late enough in life that I would say he's enjoyed privileges that I didn't have as a child and most of my peers didn't have, and some had a lot less than we had. I never felt that we were financially struggling. I'm amazed that my parents were able to make it work with 4 children, and but they did, and the abundance of love was there. So I never thought I didn't get enough to make me smile. Which let's face it, kids. That's what kids deserve. Not just goods and material things, but the love and the free play and the recreation and the access to fun things that don't depend on your zip code and your daddy or mommy's paycheck.
Right.
So it's something that I'm always stunned how much generosity there is in our neck of the woods. But my biggest hurt in this category is that there are people that fall between the cracks because maybe they're not plugged in, as you said, or maybe they just have pride and don't think of themselves as wanting a handout. Well, it's not a handout. It's like we're helping you and you could be helping us tomorrow.
Right.
So I think it's great what you all are doing. And I want, like I said to Michael and Kristen yesterday, and I'm sorry, I was going to come in to the studio today, but I'm in Boston yesterday and today, so that didn't happen. But although I might take you up on the fish and chips on the way home.
Stop by the Profile Town. It's the only place to get fish and chips.
Well, you're not going to get me to leave New Bedford ever for fish unless I'm coming from the north.
Right.
And I know the Profile Tavern has great fish and chips, so I might make an exception, and you and I can argue that one out off the air.
I won't ever argue the Profile Tavern. It's a great place.
No, it is. It is. I won't remind you of your.
No, I know.
You want me to tell everybody?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we had a great breakfast plan to talk about local issues, and you had me drive all the way to Freetown because you're very loyal to your listeners and your customers and your clients, and you took me there on the day it was closed.
Well, they hadn't opened yet. They hadn't opened.
By the way, I shouldn't say you took me. I drove you.
You drove, but the audience gets it.
Yeah.
We made it work. We made it work.
Oh, we sure did. But I was really looking forward to it. That must have been so. They hadn't even. It was right when they were opening.
They hadn't opened the brunch yet on Sundays.
That's right.
That's what it was.
No, you're right. So anyway, you tell me more of what you all are doing because you know that I want to be there to help. But I mean, tell me what your plan is because I think the most important thing is telling these stories. Tim and Kristen and Michael and you and others have been telling these personal stories. But I also think there's some stories out there we haven't identified yet that your listeners might be able to help with.
No, I agree with that, Mark. The what we ought to do is we'll get you in here next week and get this stuff laid out because I know that you're extraordinarily generous. And what you said to us, and I hope I can say this on the air, is that you said, tell us where the holes are and I'll plug them. And that was like the greatest message I've ever heard. And I know Michael and Kristen and everybody else here is really excited about that.
Well, and it's kind of an old-fashioned thought that I have when I say that. It's selfish in the way of if you believe in helping people, you want to help as many as you can, right? And I've done plenty of fundraising for nonprofits in my earlier days, particularly. I was talking to Jim Mathis about this today on something that we're doing with the Denison Memorial Kids. And the last thing I want to do is incentivize people to work less hard. And what I mean by that is fundraising sucks,
right?
Whether it's political or charitable. It just sucks. The outcome can be great, right? You win an election or you help people.
Right.
But if somebody says they have a goal to raise $50,000 and they raise 40 and somebody swoops in and says, I've got 10 for you, well, you're going to stop at 40. Well, I look at it the exact opposite. I say, you know what? If you get to that 50, I'll match you because I want you to find the extra 100 children or the extra 10 families or whatever, because you don't want to disincentivize people when there's so much need in our little place in the world. There's need everywhere, but we have to worry about our little place.
Our little corner of the world, Senator. Senator, I'll talk to you over the weekend. I do appreciate you calling in. I'm up against a hard break. Senator Mark Montague, thanks, Mark.
Make sure Kristen knows that I really enjoyed that story.
I will absolutely. Yeah. I'll make sure she knows. Senator Mark Montague, folks, great time of the year, right? Senator's very, very generous, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the program. I'm Chris McCarthy. This holiday season, WBSM and United Way of Greater New Bedford are looking to make a mini miracle happen for a 7-month-old. Scarlett and her mom, Meghan, okay? Scarlett was born with a soft, cleft palate. It's basically a hole in the roof of her mouth, makes it difficult for her to feed, and the potential for choking, requiring special bottles and formula. It's also causing her to have hearing loss as well. So we're going to do a little mini miracle for Scarlett, right? Good news is there is a correctable operation that they can do, but she has to gain a lot of weight first, okay? Scarlett has to gain weight before she can have the surgery. So she needs the bottles and the formula, okay? So Meghan gives Scarlett, that's her mom, year-round, round-the-clock care, and the bills are starting to pile up as she puts all her focus on keeping her daughter happy and healthy, right? So you can change the lives of a New Bedford family with a donation to our Mini Miracles program. No amount is too small. No amount is too big. Find out how to donate by clicking on Mini Miracle at the top of the WBSM.com website of the WBSM app to make a miracle happen for little Scarlett. Mini Miracle at WBSM is sponsored by Souza Family Orthodontics, First Citizens Federal Credit Union, the BOCCA, Caston Pig Kitchen and Ale House, Fall River Municipal Credit Union, and Leach Garage and Auto Body. Those people make the Mini Miracle possible. So go check that out at the website and on the app. Let's help Scarlett and her mom, right? So I want to thank Senator Montagne again for helping us plug the holes. So get out and whatever you do, the Senator's going to put the roof on it, right? He's going to put some frosting on the cake. So stick around, folks. We're going to get back